What's up, pumpers? Jerome here with another classic Season of Mastery video. Today, we're going to be covering why season-based WoW appears to be the future of World of Warcraft. If you liked the video, please hit that like button, hit the subscription button, and do not forget to click that notification bell as well, or I will not be able to keep making videos like this one.
You are not prepared!
So if you haven't heard, Season of Mastery is a season-based World of Warcraft. It's based on vanilla WoW or classic WoW. It's a one-year cycle, so you're going to see all of the content in one total year, and then the servers will roll into the classic era servers. It has both changes to bring in new and more casual players. For example, 40% bonus XP on quests, while also having things that will appease the more serious and hardcore players. For example, Molten Core has new raid mechanics, and ideally, raids like BWL, AQ40, and Nax will also have new raid mechanics as well to appease and sort of continue to interest the more serious players. So why is seasonal WoW significant? Well, the idea essentially comes from other games. So it comes from Path of Exile, for example, where there are these new seasons every 3 or 4 months, and they bring in new features and new hype and new talk about the game, while also removing things that were less popular. So in the example here would be things like world buffs. So world buffs are beloved by many people, not liked by other people, and would make testing new content more difficult, or changing, Molten Core, for example. So in this season, we won't have world buffs, but in future seasons, we may very well have them. So the idea is you take certain things, you remove them, you add new things, then you add other things back, and eventually you have what would essentially be called a Classic Plus. You have a brand new game with things that people want, and ideally you're building hype around it every single time, and you can kind of get away with releasing the same content over and over again. So you may ask, why is seasonal-based WoW the future? Well, just like I said, it's being done in other games already. Games like Fortnite, games like Apex Legends, games like Path of Exile, Diablo. Why are they doing season-based content? Well, it's simple. They're able to release the same thing again, giving you the same cup of porridge, for example, and they're able to make small tweaks relatively easily and bring hype with it every single time. So Path of Exile might maybe only change 10% of the game, but it brings all the players back, and you keep the things from the previous season. So you can get rid of the things you didn't like, get rid of the things that were unpopular, and bring in new things. The game keeps getting better and better and better and better, and every single release brings hype and newfound interest in the game. So I mean, it's essentially like you're getting a new launch of WoW, a new expansion of WoW, but way more often, and that seems like a win-win for everybody. So another reason why season-based WoW is the future is simple. It brings hype. And when I say it brings hype, there are a bunch of different reasons why it brings hype. So first of all, we have a hugely neglected population, the speedrunning and challenge running community. Obviously, retail has achievement hunters and mount hunters and collectors, and people like Kayun collecting every weapon, and it's amazing and it's fantastic and I love it. But at the same time, it does not bring in new players like it should, because you cannot retroactively go back and get certain mounts, for example. So it's a very hard community to break into. Twitch is all about things like speedrunning, challenge running, and it's proven out in the fact that Joker D had some of the biggest viewer numbers ever on WoW when he was doing his world's first level 60 on Classic WoW. This is a very big part of the Twitch community and the viewer base, and if you are neglecting this, which WoW has neglected for so long, there's not really a huge focus put on things like speedrunning and challenge running, and things that really could have a huge foothold in the WoW community. We could be looking at arenas and serious competitive rating, and then right behind that, boom, you've got speedrunning and speed leveling, and it could be a very competitive thing with giant events and huge prize pools and massive, unbelievable viewership numbers. The reality is that's just being neglected right now, and season-based WoW will allow us to get back to that speed leveling and competitive aspect of WoW that's been sorely lacking. If you can continue to cater to things like speed leveling, challenge running, things like the hardcore community, then boom, all of a sudden the community just keeps going up and up and up. And imagine every 3 to 4 months, you have those giant speed leveling races, and the views are enormous, and the content is amazing. This is something that Blizzard should be wanting. It's something that all the players and viewers should be wanting as well. We all love speedrunning. We all watch speedrunning on Twitch. Why isn't WoW more speedrunning focused when it's got a huge, giant play field for us to enjoy? Well, the simple reality is it's been neglected. This is a way to fix that. Another reason why season-based WoW is the future is that it's cheap. And this is a huge selling point for companies. Of course, corporations love to save money. but it's way cheaper to continue to update Classic than it is to go make a whole new expansion. If you can certifiably prove that every single update is bringing new players to the game, similar to how RuneScape kept adding and adding to OSRS until it became this juggernaut, you could do that with Season of Mastery, and you could continually add new content, new raids, new dungeons, rework certain things, and absolutely bring in more and more and more people while also saving a ton of money. This is an easy boardroom pitch. This is probably one of the cheaper projects they've done in a long time, and yet at the same time, it's brought so many new players to the game, old players coming back. It's easy. It's easy. They can do this over and over and over again and improve and improve and snowball and snowball and snowball until this is an absolutely massive thing, and it really didn't cost nearly as much as, say, a new retail expansion might. The last big reason why season-based WoW is the future is that it's already being done on retail. Literally, the patch system in retail is basically seasons. It's just not called the same thing, and the hype is not quite the same. So season-based retail is essentially the patches. For example, we have 9.2 coming out. It's all going to have new mechanics, new core things. It's going to change certain things. There's going to be all sorts of new content and a giant new raid, right? So this is basically already a season. Retail is simply not promoting it as a season. My pitch would be to essentially move the patch system into more of a season system, where you have maybe season 1 of retail, season 2, season 3, sort of like arenas, but the idea being that it's much more hype. So you do things like the global raid release to kick off this massive season, and all of a sudden you've got all these giant guilds supported by Blizzard going at it for a world's first race to kick off an awesome season. You have a giant arena tournament to kick off the season, and it syncs up with the season. You have just way more hype and focus on these seasons, and the patch system to me is a little bit outdated. I think moving away from the patch system makes a lot of sense. And it's also less confusing as well, because theoretically, we're going to end up in a world where we have a TBC, a Wrath. We're going to have a Season of Mastery, Season 1, Season 2, Season 3. We're going to have retail, patch 9.2, patch 9.3, 9.5, whatever it is. Like, we should just have seasons, and they should all be perfectly set up so that they kind of fill each other's gaps. Ideally, the changes made in retail and the changes made in Classic will both make so much logical sense, and these seasons will line up so perfectly that you'll almost feel silly if you're not playing both. And you could get people that playing all the games all the time. You have basically no gap in content, and Blizzard and WoW are just absolutely thriving all the time on Twitch, all the time on YouTube, and there's just so much content to choose from, and it's not overlapping, and it's all like really positive and new things and great ideas, and the community's loving it and giving feedback, and there's maybe polls and stuff. I mean, there's limitless options here. So we've talked about why season-based WoW is definitely the future. So what does the future hold for this season-based WoW? Well, in Classic Season of Mastery, I think there is so much that can be done. Of course, we're going to see new raid boss mechanics for pretty much every single raid from here on out in Classic, and if we ever see another TBC, I'm sure we'll see brand new raid mechanics as well. I would love in a Season 2 of Season of Mastery to see brand new mob mechanics as well. Go through every single mob, look at the drawings and the sketches and the journals of all the game developers, and see, was that really the way they intended it to be, the way it turned out, right? So things, for example, like mobs evading, right? Mob pathing. Mob pathing could be 30-40% better. It could be way more interesting to be fighting mobs. They can't just evade. Look at the hardcore Season of Mastery players, right? So they all did dungeons, and pretty much nobody died in dungeons. And I think that was a little bit underwhelming, right? Because everybody knew all the evade spots, the giant wheel on Dead Mines, for example. If you can fix mob pathing, the game becomes a lot more interesting from a leveling and challenge run perspective. Another thing I think will be definitely changed is the ranking system. So this is not really quite where it needs to be right now. I don't feel like people are having an absolute blast ranking, just because it's still extremely time consuming. And I think there's definitely got to be a better setup for ranking. Maybe we do an RBG system. Maybe we have new battlegrounds like Eye of the Storm. Maybe we even add arenas for Classic. There's a lot of options here that they could do. Meanwhile, maybe doing some things for Quest XP. I didn't quite feel like it's quite right, because if you're a new player and you're kind of getting punished right now for mob grinding, and with the crowding, for example, it's kind of, the 40% isn't really helping very much on the crowded servers. Maybe certain quests give more XP than others. For example, one thing you could do is to lower the quest XP of very easy quests. Maybe the devs can figure out exactly which quests are considered to be easier, the simple kill quests that were always very crowded, and you move those down the XP list, and you move up things that are really hard, the elite quests that people aren't really doing, and try to give people more of a risk reward, especially for things like hardcore, where right now there's not really any reason to do elite quests. It's a lot safer to just grind and do the easy quests and just kind of skip to another area with the 40% bonus XP. I think there's got to be a good middle ground here to reward risk and sort of punish the simple, safer playstyles. Another thing I'd really like to see would be some small class tweaks. There are a lot of examples for leveling, especially where you could make small tweaks to make certain classes like Warrior maybe a little more viable, certain classes like Warlock a little less survivable. There are, of course, a lot of changes you could do at 60 as well, and just completely rework certain classes that don't feel very strong. And even rework the PvE balance of power as well if you want it. Speaking of Season of WoW, it would be very logical to assume we're also going to see another seasonal TBC at some point, Seasonal Wrath, for example, and making small changes to those games as well, maybe even at the initial launch, may not be a bad idea. For example, Heartbeat in TBC was definitely a mistake. There are weird things in every expansion that the 99% of the population would agree need to be changed, and waiting an entire cycle for the game for everyone to kind of agree on that seems a little silly. Another example for me is Cross Realm in Classic right now. There are a lot of TBC server imbalance issues that would be solved by Cross Realm. I know it's a little controversial, but things like that are kind of obvious at this point would be the right choice are sort of being delayed to keep the game the way it should be, but then you have an issue like server batching, where it was in Classic the entire time, and it should have been removed like a week into Classic, but it never was. I don't think we should have to put up with really obviously not ideal things. There aren't a lot of things in TBC that I'd like to get changed like that, but if you have any ideas yourself, I'd love to hear them in the comments section below. Let me know what you think in TBC needs to be changed, and will probably get changed if they relaunch it again. Finally, I want to talk about the future of retail WoW. And I think the future is brighter than people think. Of course, it's going to be seasonal eventually. We're going to see a less of a focus on patches, hopefully, which seems a little antiquated. And ideally, we'll see things like a global race to world's first, backed by Blizzard, which should have happened a long time ago. I think that would be really beneficial for the scene. Heck, you could even sponsor prize pools. You could give the player salary. You could do so many different little things that would help a heck of a lot with the scene. Getting more people interested in high-end raiding, getting more people interested in retail WoW in general, I think should be a top priority. I also think there should be a much bigger focus on retail arenas, and definitely maybe quadrupling the prize pools, making it a lot easier for players to get into the scene, and making it so players are a much bigger name when they win. For example, we need more stars in WoW. We need more stars in arenas. I really think in the future of retail, arenas, there's so much more to be done, so much potential as an esport. It just hasn't happened yet. So now we've talked about the future of WoW and why seasons are going to be the future. Hopefully you have a lot of thoughts to put in the comments below. I would love to hear what you think about seasons. Are they a good idea, or do you not like season-based games? Thank you so much for watching, and remember to have a great day.